everybody, it's 7 o'clock here in the UK. You are very welcome to spend your breakfast with us here at Sky News. Pingdemonium panic is not going away this morning, with warnings of empty shelves and calls for a change in those who are exempt from self-isolation rules to help keep critical workers working. The Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, on the show very shortly, plus the Shadow Home Secretary, Nick Thomas-Symonds. Also, we'll speak to the Liverpool actor and comedian Ted Robbins to hear why, what his take is, I should say, on why Liverpool is no longer the Taj Mahal of the Northwest. And
that's where we are. Isn't it amazing what I'm contemplating together?
Singing for safety, we'll speak to the songwriter who wants to help women not fear getting home at night. It's Thursday, the 22nd of July. Pingdemic pressure, warnings of empty shelves and fuel shortages prompt calls for the government to make more critical workers exempt from self-isolation.
I'm in Yakutsk, Siberia. Been up to the Arctic and to the wildfires racing through the Siberian forests to witness with my own eyes the confluence of calamities affecting our planet.
Good morning. The extreme heat warnings are still in force across parts of the UK and Ireland. Very hot day to come yet again today, and a warning to take care if you're trying to keep cool in this heat.
And we're live in Tokyo, the day before the opening ceremony of the Olympics, and they fired the guy who's put it all together. And we've got news of who'll be carrying the flags for Team GB.
Ruined lives, calls for the government and sports bodies to address the dangers of brain injury in sports.
My concern is about the future. You know, will I have to go into a home? Will I be able to remember things? Will I remember memories of my kids? Will I be able to remember actually playing the sport?
And happy birthday to George. Kensington Palace released a new picture of the Prince, who is 8 today. Now, if you thought pingdemic was going to be a short-lived phrase, then it is not. It's causing new fears today over empty shop shelves and fuel supplies because of the sheer number of people self-isolating. That's led to calls from the British Retail Consortium for the government to change its guidance on self-isolation to exempt more double-jabbed critical workers, as so many are getting pinged by the NHS COVID app. Let's have a look at it in more detail, shall we? The British Retail Consortium has now urged the government to change self-isolation guidance to help tackle the pingdemic by exempting more critical workers from self-isolation rules. Meanwhile, the National Police Chiefs Council has said response times are under strain amid staff shortages, with officers having to self-isolate. And BP says lorry drivers are being forced to self-isolate, causing temporary fuel supply issues at some petrol stations. It's led to warnings from industry bosses, including those in retail, who've warned that food supply chains are starting to fail because of workers having to quarantine.
We see over the coming, 5 days, the situation get worse and worse, and it's almost exponential, the pinging we're seeing. In fact, we've actually lost 2 distribution sites due to the pingdemic, and we're having to staff those from other parts of the UK. We just need some clarity, some steering, some clear guidance so that we can go out and do what we do well. And that's all we're asking for as a business.
Being pinged. Meanwhile, politicians are also being pinged. The Labour leader Keir Starmer is isolating for a 4th time after one of his children tested positive for COVID-19. And Boris Johnson is in quarantine until Monday after getting too close to the Health Secretary Sajid Javid, who has COVID. Well, the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, is with us. Hello, good morning. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Just how worried are you about this pingdemonium and the impact that it's having on the country?
Obviously, we're very concerned about the situation. I spoke to representative members of the BRC that you mentioned, the British Retail Consortium, other people, and we're monitoring the situation.
OK, but we've seen the shelves, we've seen the supermarket shelves. There's literally no food there. Petrol pumps are running out. We need to start looking at who can be exempt from having to self-isolate.
And that's what we are doing. We're going to announce a list of exempt workers. The list of exemptions will be quite narrow because obviously you have to draw the line somewhere, and what we want to do is to keep people safe. And that's why we had the self-isolation policy in the first place.
Who's going to be on it?
I can't tell you, because you'll have to wait and see when we announce the list.
Why are we still waiting?
Because we have to work
Thursday.
up.
We've been talking about it we've been talking about it for a very long time. Certainly since Monday, I've been asking your colleagues. We've seen what's happening on the supermarket shelves. Literally, people cannot get food. They cannot get fuel to put in their cars.
As I said, we're monitoring the situation. I don't think...
How much
there
more
are
information
reports.
do you need?
We need quite a bit, because we have to see what the situation is across the country, and there are different reports from different areas. But as I said, we're going to come up with a list of exempt workers very soon.
OK, so we have seen who was on the list previously, haven't we, when it came to workers who were key workers during the first lockdown in March of last year. Is that a good starting point?
Well, last year was the critical point there was in terms of energy infrastructure, things like nuclear power stations, and there was a real critical focus on that. And as I remember last year, it did take time to come up with the list. And this time we'll come up with a list.
But you've got it already now, haven't you?
Well, it's a slightly different situation because, of course, this time we've got people who've been vaccinated.
Point.
Yeah, it is a starting point. I think you're quite right. But we're going to have to review the list and see who the people are this time that we think should be exempt.
When will you know?
We should know very soon. I mean, I can't give you the exact minute. But
I'm
clearly,
not looking for the minute. I mean, a day would be good.
No, a day would be good. But clearly it's something of real urgency and we want to do it as quickly as we can.
By the end of the week?
I can't give you a limit, but I would like to see...
But, you know, people at home this morning are watching...
No, I understand.
Well, why not? Why can't you?
I completely understand.
I literally can't get baby food for the baby.
I completely understand. It's a difficult situation, but we need to review all the information that we can.
OK.
And then we'll come out with a list very soon.
OK, so why can't they... Here's an idea. Why can't key workers use the pilot scheme that the Prime Minister was going to use and the Chancellor was going to use and Michael Gove did use in order to test to release?
So we've got to work out who the key workers are, and that's what we'll do, and we'll come out with a list.
OK, I'm going to give you a list. Let's start with lorry drivers.
I'm not going to play a game with you.
It's not a game. How can you say it's a game? Have you seen the shelves? They're absolutely empty.
It's a critical point, but I've said to you...
It's not a game, Minister.
Kay, I've said to you 3 times that the list is going to be coming out soon, and I'm not going to prejudge what's on the list and who the workers who will be exempt are.
Dropping self-isolation for double jab from the 16th of August, is that definitely going to go ahead?
As I always used to say, we always review the information a week before, and then we make the decision, just as we did with the 19th of July, with the 21st of June when we postponed it. It was always a week before, and I think a week before the 16th of August we will be able to make a decision as to whether the restrictions will be lifted.
A friend rang me yesterday. She was very, very excited about her wedding. It's the 3rd time it's been cancelled. The groom's been pinged.
That's terrible. I mean, a terrible situation, but, you know, we are in a very, very difficult pandemic.
They shouldn't go ahead with the wedding.
It's completely an unusual phase that we're in, and I think the rules are clear. You've got to self-isolate.
So that they shouldn't go ahead.
I don't know what the arrangements will be.
Well, if they've been pinged, they just shouldn't go ahead with the wedding.
Well, I mean, I suppose that's exactly the right thing.
Yeah, Lisa Nandy was on the show yesterday, the Shadow Foreign Secretary. She said that she completely understood why people were switching off the app. Or deleting it altogether. I don't know if you saw the YouGov poll that was suggesting that basically, I think a third of people were not using the app, and of those that are, 20% were not using the test and trace part of it. Do you have sympathy?
I think it's a real shame that people are doing that, because we're not doing this simply for fun. We're doing these rules, we're putting in place these rules to protect everybody. And I think that the whole point about self-isolation is that we're protecting wider society, and I think people should be following the rules. You
don't at any stage switch it off?
No.
What happens
I've got it on now. Well, my phone's switched off now because I'm on.
What about when you're in the chamber?
Yeah, it can ping anywhere.
Yeah. So if you are in the chamber and then people like, oh, I don't know, Keir Starmer is there and then he has to self-isolate, potentially he could have COVID from one of his children, you're looking at pingdemonium in the chamber, aren't you?
Well, you could do. I mean, it's disruptive. I mean, there's no.
But it's not sustainable, is it?
Well,
my point.
And my point is that the restrictions, fingers crossed, will be lifted on the 16th of August. I'm confident they will be, but I can't guarantee that.
But can we limp along until then?
I think we're going to have to follow the rules until the 16th of August. I know it's a long time, but it's not going to last forever. And I think that once the restrictions are lifted, we can get back to normality.
I don't know how people are going to feel about that this morning, but let's see. I'm sure they. Of course it is. Of course it is.
But you know, I've got to be as clear as I can about where we are.
Yeah, I just don't. You know, people watching this morning will be thinking, I can't get the food I need for my family. I can't get the fuel I need to go to work. Nurses and frontline workers potentially can't go to work to save other people's lives because they're being forced to self-isolate and they haven't got COVID. And we have an option to test and release them.
It's a difficult situation. I don't recognise the bare shelves that you've described. Clearly, in some places that's happening.
Have you not seen the pictures in the papers?
I have seen pictures in the papers. Clearly, that is happening. I don't think it's universal across the country. I also think that we have to protect our people against what's been a terrible pandemic.
Yeah, OK. Let me talk about, those are some of the pictures. Let me talk to you about the NHS, 3% for nurses. They are threatening industrial action. They say that's nowhere near enough for them, and they are looking at something like 12.5% is what the unions want. They've literally risked their lives for us, haven't they, over the last 18 months or so. 3%?
So when this came up a few months ago, the proposal was a freeze. We said there'd be an independent consultation, an independent review. And the independent review, it's independent, it's not the government saying this, the independent review has recommended 3% increase, and the government has decided that we would go with the independent review. And I think that's entirely fair. Obviously, we'd like it to be more, but you have to remember that we spent £350 billion to deal with the pandemic, to pay for furlough, to pay for other support, loans that have been given to companies. And I think 3%, which was, after all, what the independent review came up with, is a fair number.
12.5% or going on strike, or certainly threatening industrial
12.5% is, I mean, you'll appreciate that's a huge increase in a year, which would be very impossible to afford. And I think that everyone understands that the NHS has been heroic through this period. The independent review said 3%. And we've agreed with that.
Is that a way to reward people, though, who have literally risked their lives, many having lost their lives on the front line, when potentially that is going to be a below-inflation rise?
I don't think it is necessarily going to be below-inflation rise. We don't know what the inflation figure will be. But as you will remember, when this came up a few months ago, there was outcry about the fact that it was going to be held flat, or it was a 1% rise, actually. We went to an independent panel review. They came up with the number 3%, which is more than was suggested at the beginning. And we've decided that makes a lot of sense and that we should stick to that.
Yeah, Matt Hancock said that you didn't have any more money. So where's it coming from?
Matt Hancock said, yes, at the time, he said there was no money. The independent panel has said 3%, and we've decided that we can afford that.
How are you going to pay for it?
We're going to pay for it through general taxation, as we pay for everything.
But no increases in taxation?
Not that I understand.
Well, because, of course, I was chatting to one of your colleagues earlier on in the week, I can't remember who it was now, who was sat here and was telling me that absolutely under no circumstances would there be an increase in national insurance, because, of course, that's what it says on the front page of your manifesto.
That's what it says in the manifesto. I don't see how we could increase national insurance, but, you know, things have been very flexible over the last 18 months. We've lived through an unprecedented time. We've been spending huge amounts of money that we never thought was possible. And it's up to the Chancellor and the Treasury and the wider government to decide a budget. But the budget isn't due for a few months now.
One wonders how you're going to pay for social care.
That's, again, another question that we're debating within government. My understanding is that we will have a policy by the autumn, but we'll have to wait and see.
But you won't put up taxation for that either?
I don't think we'll put up national insurance, that specific
What might
taxation.
you put up?
I don't know. I mean, it's a part of a general debate that we have within the government about how we can balance all these priorities. And, you know, these are difficult questions, as you know, and many viewers will appreciate that. You know, in their own household spending, you've got to make difficult decisions. When you're thinking about a government, when you're thinking about billions of pounds and millions of people, there are lots of tough choices.
And who could have expected a pandemic, of course?
Exactly.
Totally get it. But, you know, you might have to break your manifesto promise.
I hope we don't, but let's just see where we are.
Is it?
Well, I'm not ruling anything in or out. I never do in these interviews. I've just got to be very clear about the difficult choices that we have to make. And also the other thing that we've got to remember is that we don't know in 3 months' time where we'll be with the pandemic. We don't know what the state of the finances will be. We don't know what the state of the economy will be. So it doesn't make any sense to rule that many things in or out at this stage.
Would you go abroad at the moment?
I personally wouldn't.
Why not?
Because I like staying at home, and also I think that it's less complicated, actually. if you just stay at home and enjoy the.
Is that because
British
you can
weather.
get caught out when you're overseas and then suddenly things change? And
Well, the thing is
it's a
about going
big
overseas is that
challenge
there
to get
are
home.
rules over there as well. It's
No,
not
I
just a
understand.
question. So it can complicate things. You know, if people go to France, they'll be subject to rules in France. So the French were saying they might expect British people going to France to quarantine, and those rules change. So for this year, this summer, I've made the decision to stay at home.
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, my flights for my holiday have been changed yet again. It's the fourth time for the holiday over the last 18 months that they've been changed. And I'm mentioning that because I'm sure a lot of my viewers are in a similar position. So you're saying probably, on balance, it's best to limp through to the end of the year and then see where we are next year.
That's my personal choice. I'm not here to tell people how to live their lives in respect of.
No, but you're here to offer
holidays.
guidance and advice.
My own personal choice would be to stay at home, but I think if people want to go abroad, then you know they should do that.
Let's talk about Brexit, should we? It's always very complicated, Brexit. Let's see what we can do with it. The British government wants to renegotiate the deal with the EU, is my understanding. Your party won an election on the strength of the deal going ahead. The government signed the deal. Shouldn't we just honour it now?
So with the Northern Ireland Protocol, obviously nobody had any idea the actual effects of it until we left the EU. So we had to look at how it operated after we left the EU. We've looked at it. There have been difficulties with it, and we think that it's not satisfactory as it is. So we want to be in a situation where we can actually renegotiate it. The Northern Ireland Protocol isn't written in stone. It's not something that was going to last forevermore. Everybody realised at the time.
It's been just a few months. And also, when you
been
say
nearly
nobody
6 months.
knew, no one knew. Am I not right in saying that at least 3 previous prime ministers warned that this would happen?
Nobody could guarantee, I should have been more careful with my words, nobody could guarantee what would happen until it actually happened and we'd left the EU. I think that what we've seen is that the EU have been a bit inflexible on the protocol, and we want to be able to see if we can make it work more smoothly.
A deal's a deal, though, isn't it?
A deal is a deal,
It was signed.
but it wasn't something that was going to last forever. Nobody thought that the Northern Ireland Protocol was going to define the role of Northern Ireland within the UK evermore. It was something that was flexible, and we wanted to make it work more smoothly.
Well, as I said, the EU have got a very different view on that.
But let's see where we are. I mean, I remember being on programmes like this saying the EU would never do a deal. And of course, we did.
Well, they did a deal because they thought we were going to honour it, and we're not going to.
But you'll remember that 2 years ago, people said we were never going to get a deal from the EU, but we did. So when people say they're not going to look at the protocol again, I say, well, let's just see.
OK, final thought. Any likelihood that the UK could trigger the Article 16 break, which would mean that basically there'd be all sorts of mayhem in Northern Ireland?
So the Article 16 break, as you point out, is in the protocol. It's something that we could do to suspend it. We've chosen not to do that. That's not our opening position. And we want to be able to negotiate and have a conversation with the EU about how best to go forward.
OK, good to talk to you. I have
Thank
to
you.
let
It was
you
good.
go. Thank you very much, Steve, for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much.
Really appreciate it. Thank
Bye.
you. Still to come on the programme for you, we've got some of the front pages this morning and their take on the pingdemic. This is what it's looking like, starting with the Mirror, which says shops are running on empty as thousands of workers are hit by the pingdemic. The Mail also sums up worries over supermarket food supplies, calling it one of the shocking tolls of the pingdemic. Pings are running out. Empty shelves are also making the front of the Sun this morning. Still to come on the programme, the Shadow Home Secretary Nick Thomas Simmons joins us at 8:05. Later in the programme, speaking to the man who's campaigning for better safety gear for paddleboard users to create a legacy for his friend who lost his life while out on the water. That's at around 8:20. We speak to the former Team GB bobslayer who was forced to retire after a crash left her with a head injury. That's at 8:30. A two-pronged environmental disaster is unfolding in the Russian Arctic, which could release billions of tonnes of carbon into the atmosphere, with consequences for us all. There's a big thaw of the permafrost in Siberia, and at the same time, forest fires are burning through millions of acres of land. Our Moscow correspondent Diana Magne joining us now from Yakutsk, which is in Siberia. Hello to you, Diana. Good morning. Tell us more about this.
Hi, Kay. Well, first of all, I flew up deep into the Arctic Circle to assess what was going on with the permafrost, to a permafrost research station up there. And really, all you have to do is poke a stick into the huge number of newly formed ponds caused in permafrost depressions where the ground has caved in, and you see methane bubbling up. And that is an indication of the greenhouse gases, methane and CO2, that are contained in the permafrost, that as our planet warms, as the climate gets warmer, that permafrost gets warmer too, starts to thaw, and it releases these greenhouse gases. Permafrost is basically the permanently frozen soil which sits about 30 centimetres or lower beneath the topsoil, and it can go for tens, hundreds of metres. It covers 2/3 of the landmass of Russia. So where I am now is permafrost, and 1/4 of the northern hemisphere. So you can imagine how many gigatons, 1,400 gigatons, and a gigaton is literally an incomprehensibly large number of carbon, is what is contained in the soil, far more than is contained in the Earth's atmosphere. It is gradually thawing, and as it does, it is accelerating climate change further. Then I came back further south to Yakutsk here in Siberia. The airport was closed for a couple of days, which delayed us coming back because of the smoke from wildfires. And yesterday we went out with some firefighters to see for ourselves what was going on. There are wildfires raging across several Russian regions, but here in Yakutia, and Yakutsk is the capital of Yakutia, it is worst. 1.5 million hectares affected because it's been an exceptionally hot summer. It's about 28 degrees here today. It's been 39 degrees here. Bear in mind it gets to minus 55 in winter, and you can see the kind of extremes that people in Siberia have to deal with. And the problem with these wildfires is that as they burn forests, which are carbon sinks in and of themselves. They release carbon that's contained in trees and vegetation, and they thaw the permafrost. So it's literally a triple whammy effect of climate calamities that I've witnessed.
OK, thanks so much indeed. Thanks a lot, Diana. And you can watch Diana's report throughout the day here on Sky News. Meantime, you remember those wildfires that we were telling you about in Northern California? They spread to Nevada, forcing more people to evacuate from their homes. The fire has been burning since the 4th of July and was one of nearly 24 blazes sparked by lightning strikes. Smoke from the fires in California and Oregon has been spotted as far away as the East Coast, and indeed in Spain. Not in Spain, in space, probably in Spain as well. Let me tell you about this. At least 33 people have died. 8 are still missing after flooding in China's Henan province. That, according to officials there. Heavy rain turned into severe flooding on Tuesday, causing the streets to turn to rivers and trapping people as water filled the subway, as you saw yesterday. More rain forecast for the next few days. And you can keep up with all the stories affected by the global climate on the Daily Climate Show right here on Sky News, 6:30 and 9:30 every single day. Now, there's a call for urgent action to address the risks of brain injury in sport. We've spoken to some former sports stars who know only too well the hidden damage it can do. Shaman Freeman-Powell reports.
Lenny Woodard has dedicated his entire life to rugby. He expected the sport to take a toll on his body, but was shocked when he was diagnosed with dementia at 45.
I still think I'm 21 in the head, but I'm 45, and I shouldn't be feeling like this now. And what's even more tragic is coming from the game that I absolutely adored and loved. It's concerning. It's concerning. It's my concern is about the future. Will I have to go into a home? Will I be able to remember things? Will I remember memories of my kids? Will I be able to remember actually playing sport?
The diagnosis has turned his life upside down. Although in the early stages, he's already lost out on work as a result of his illness and says it's starting to impact his life.
Simple things like you would go to a shop and forgot what you got in the shop for, or you walk into a kitchen to get something, but then you get in there and have a mind blank. I started to get more frustrated, and then I've been, never raised my voice, never become angry, but I started to get, angry now and again, road rage and things like that.
And Lenny is not alone. Richard represents 175 former professional rugby players with brain injuries. He says this is not what the players signed up for.
Everyone knows from an early age that it's a dangerous, rough game. However, what all our guys are angry about is that they didn't know of the risks of brain injuries. No guy or woman signs up to play rugby to get early onset dementia at the age of 35.
The report found in sports bodies to mark its own homework. Former England rugby player Kieran Bracken agrees and says over the years the game has become much more dangerous.
The system is failing. It's absolutely failing. Players are playing having been knocked out, and hopefully in time to come that won't be allowed. Players will have a longer rest and we can make sure that these players have a longer career and rugby is sustainable.
MPs are calling on the government to draw up a firm definition on what concussion is and impose new rules that all sports must follow. Siobhan Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
And we'll have more on that with a former bobsleigh champion later on the programme. Now, Harvey Weinstein has pleaded not guilty to 11 charges of sexual assault in Los Angeles. The former Hollywood producer appeared in court after losing his bid to block extradition from New York, where he's serving a 23-year sentence for rape. Dubai has made its own artificial rain to tackle its summer heat wave. The so-called cloud seeding project involves using drones to unleash electrical charges into clouds, which causes rain. It's part of an effort to create more rainfall in a country that typically only sees 3 to 4 inches of rain a year. 40,000 people will head to Suffolk this weekend for Latitude, which will be at full capacity as a government test event. The 4-day music and arts festival will become the first major event to be held following the lifting of most COVID restrictions in England. Music headliners include Wolf Alice, the Chemical Brothers and Bombay Bicycle Club. And we'll have live coverage from Latitude here on Sky News tomorrow. NASA's Perseverance rover has begun preparing to search for signs of ancient life on Mars. Launched in July of last year, it will use sophisticated sensors to search its surrounding area with the hope of one day providing evidence of life on Mars. Now, Kensington Palace has released a new photo of Prince George marking his 8th birthday. The picture of the heir to the throne, taken by the Duchess of Cambridge, shows the Prince smiling while perched on a Land Rover. There you go. And was taken earlier this month in Norfolk. It's thought that he was sitting on a Land Rover in tribute to his great-grandfather, Prince Philip, of course, who loved his landies, sadly died earlier this year. So let's find out more about the Olympics. There's now just one day to go until the opening ceremony in Tokyo, and we know who's going to fly the flag for Britain. Do you want to know? I bet you do. Let's find out. Tom is in Tokyo for us. Hey, Tom, good morning, good afternoon where you are.
Good afternoon, Kay. Yeah, the flag bearers have been announced by Team GB, and we can tell you that they are 2 of our very successful Olympians, Hannah Mills, the sailor, and also Mohammed Sabihi, the rower. So let me just tell you a little bit about Hannah first from South Wales. They'll be so proud down at Cardiff Sailing Club, where she started out. And Mo, well, he's an enormous guy, 6'8", and his dad has got a barber shop in London. He used to sweep the floors in that barber shop. And here he is carrying the flag for his country in the Tokyo Olympics.
Somebody who's not going to be taking part in the opening ceremony, though, is the guy that sort of put it all together.
Yeah, they're always multi-million-pound spectaculars, aren't they? But the creative director of this one has been fired overnight, and that is because they have unearthed some comments that he made back a couple of decades ago, jokes about the Holocaust, and he has been fired. Simple as that. He won't be taking any part. They're reviewing all the content of the show, but once that came to light, that video, then it was a pretty swift decision by the organisers, and he's gone, so we'll play no part in it. There will only be 950 people inside the Olympic Stadium to see that spectacular show. It will be a made-for-TV event, and the creative director, he's gone.
Goodness me. So Andy Murray, though, he is going to take part, isn't he?
He certainly is. He loves the Olympics. And we've been having a chat with him this morning. He's been talking about how he's back to try and win another gold medal at these games and just what it means to come and compete for Great Britain.
For me, it's just special to be part of an Olympic team and be part of the British team. It's like, you know, we spend most of our careers just kind of on our own at tournaments with our own little teams, and this is something that's bigger than that and like, yeah, I love putting on the British kit and just, yeah, being around everyone. So, yeah, hopefully it goes well.
Obviously looking forward to hearing more from him, Tom, but there is something a bit special about Team GB this year, just sharing this with our viewers as well, because we've actually got 8 sets of siblings or twins, haven't we, in Tokyo?
Yeah, and we've been chatting to some of them. Jennifer and Jessica Gadarova from Aylesbury Gymnastics Academy. They're going to be in the gymnastics and hugely excited to be here. We've also been chatting to some of the other brothers and sisters or twins that have been included in the squad. Luke and Pat McCormack, wow, they're characters, 2 very likely lads from Tyneham Weir, Birtley Boxing Club up in the northeast of England, and they are very, very well tipped to do very well here. Extremely proud. And of course, all the athletes have to live under these really tight COVID restrictions, not allowed out very much. And they were telling me that actually that suits them, because in an ordinary games, they'd be out and about in Tokyo and getting up to all sorts. So I think the team around them in the boxing club are quite pleased to be able to keep an eye on them this time.
OK, and actually I was reading Alistair and Johnny Brown. We knew so much about them from the last Olympics. Only one of them's qualified this time, am I right in saying?
Yeah, that's right. Johnny is going it alone. He won bronze in London in the triathlon, silver in Rio. He's going for gold. That, of course, has been his brother's medal, but Alistair sadly hasn't qualified. He is out here in Japan doing some work, looking to get elected in some athletics kind of political movement and kind of trying to forge a new career. But what a talent that family has in both of those brothers, but only Johnny here today. He's converted his conservatory up in Yorkshire into a heat chamber to try and get used to the temperatures in Tokyo. He's now out here ready to compete in the triathlon. But also, I have to say, we're told that the women's triathletes from Team GB are looking very strong as well. So the triathlon is certainly one of the events where we're looking to get some medals, and Johnny Brownlee looking for that gold medal, the one so far that's eluded him.
Fantastic. And there's, tell me about an athlete that's got their own Twitter hashtag, is that right?
Yeah, most people, I think, would have heard of Simone Biles, this uber gymnast from the United States who seemingly can do anything. She takes on the kind of moves in gymnastics that other people just aren't quite brave enough to do. And she's got this new hashtag with a goat dressed up in a gymnastics outfit that is her trademark, I suppose, on social media now. Not everyone gets one of them, and it's probably an indication of just how special she is.
I think that you should have one as well, Tom. We'll work on that. Thanks very much for now, Tom. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next hour. Tom, in Tokyo for the next 3 weeks. Tune in every morning, 7:30 and 9:30 for Tom in Tokyo. Always important to treat yourself to a little pampering, and elephants, frankly, are just no different. These photos from a zoo in Belgium show an African elephant getting a pedicure. Keepers use a power grinder to trim the toenails of the big animals, part of a regular treatment. The zoo has 23 elephants, the largest herd in Europe. I'm not sure that they paint their nails, but as you can see, they're very happy with their pedicure. When it's at the front, is it a manicure? I'm not sure. What's happening as far as the weather is concerned? Continuing to be hot, Kirsty?
Oh, yes, indeed. It is very hot, Kay, at the moment. And of course, that brings with it quite a lot of risks, but changes are looming for the weekend.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Hello there, the hot and settled sunny spell continuing then today. We still have our extreme heat warnings in force. Now that's for parts of South Wales, the Midlands, South West England and Northern Ireland in particular. And now the temperatures are just so high both by day and by night that it really is making it quite difficult to sleep. And also as people try and keep cool, there have been some water safety incidents. So it really is something we're trying to remind people just to take extra care. Heat is slightly more dangerous. We do enjoy the thought of summer, but when it comes, we really can't quite cope. Very muggy night again, so very warm start today. That low cloud across the north and the east, burning back to the coast, although the Northern Isles may stay rather grey. Lots of strong sunshine then, very high UV levels, of course. Don't forget the sunscreen. And the temperatures rising, high 20s, if not the low 30s. Parts of the Midlands, Wales, northwest England like to be very hot today. Could just see a few showers, but those will fade away. And again, another sultry night to come.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
And I make absolutely no apology for banging on about the open water issue. 6 people have now died since the weekend because they have jumped into water to try and cool off and they've not known what was beneath the surface. We spoke to the RNLI about that yesterday. Please, please, please be very careful in this hot weather. It's not just the sun that you need to be worried about. You also need to be worried about what is beneath the water. Now, the Business Secretary has told us he's very concerned about a number of people being pinged by the NHS COVID-19 app. He was speaking as fears increase over empty shop shelves and fuel supplies because of the sheer number of people self-isolating. Kwasi Kwarteng told me the government is looking to increase the number of key workers exempt from being pinged because of concerns about those numbers being affected.
We're very concerned about the situation. I spoke to Representative members of the BRC that you mentioned, the British Retail Consortium, other people, and we're monitoring the situation.
OK, but we've seen the shelves, we've seen the supermarket shelves. There's literally no food there. Petrol pumps are running out. We need to start looking at who can be exempt from having to self-isolate.
And that's what we are doing. We're going to announce a list of exempt workers. The list of exemptions will be quite narrow because obviously you have to draw the line somewhere, and what we want to do is to keep people safe.
I'm going to give you a list. Let's start with lorry drivers.
I'm not going to play a game with you.
It's not a game. How can you say it's a game? Have you seen the shelves? They're absolutely empty.
It's a critical point, but I said to you...
It's not a game, Minister.
Kay, I've said to you 3 times that the list is going to be coming out soon, and I'm not going to prejudge what's on the list and who the workers who will be exempt are.
When's the list coming out tomorrow?
I think it's likely to be later today, Kay. This comes after the government said just 2 days ago that they wouldn't be a list, it would be on a case-by-case basis. And yes, of course, you can't tell by social media pictures how widespread the shortages in supermarkets are, but certainly all the major supermarket names have said that they're having problems. There's problems with getting petrol to petrol pumps, and this is all because there is food there, but it can't get to the supermarkets because lorry drivers are self-isolating, retail workers are self-isolating, and, you know, it's over the next few weeks in danger of paralysing parts of that system. Kwasi Kwarteng there very much saying we're going to have to continue this until the 16th of August, if not longer. It's not a guarantee that it ends at that stage. But how widely drawn will that list of workers be? They're talking about it being very narrow, just people who run crucial bits of the electricity network and so on. I think there's going to be a real clamour from Tory MPs to say we need a lot of people in the retail sector if we're not going to see these pictures on our front pages every week.
Well, if it's like that now, what's it going to be like in 3 weeks?
Well, we've already got over 1 million adults self-isolating, 1 million school children. I think how far could this go over the next 3 weeks is the crucial question being discussed in government at the moment.
We've got tomorrow's take on that, haven't we, at 9 o'clock?
We are looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tamara. Thanks a lot. Let's get more now on this from Dr. Ravi Gupta. He's Professor of Clinical Microbiology at Cambridge University, and he is joining us live. Hello to you, Professor. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. What are your thoughts on the number of people that are being pinged and self-isolating? Is it completely necessary?
This is an interesting question. So, of course, the aim of the NHS tracing app is, of course, to limit transmissions of coronavirus. We are now in a highly vaccinated scenario. Unfortunately, the unvaccinated individuals are those who are young, below the ages of 18. And, of course, a lot of the transmission is happening in this group. And we also are seeing, of course, the fact that even vaccinated people are experiencing infections because the Delta variant is capable of causing infection and transmitting amongst vaccinated individuals. Although the good news is that, of course, the rate of hospitalisation and severe illness is greatly reduced with the vaccine. So it's a difficult position at the moment. On the one hand, we have relaxed all restrictions, as it were, legally. And on the other hand, we are investing large amounts in test and trace and also and of course, via the app, we're isolating lots of people. So we need to really come up with a coherent strategy. We're either going to limit infections at national level, in which case there should be a set of rules or measures in place, rather than a sort of mixed bag of measures which are creating confusion and havoc, as we can see.
What do you say to people who say, that's it, I'm going to delete this app?
I think everyone has a personal choice. We've been advised that we have the choice to wear masks or not in public places, and potentially that is something that people should be able to do in the current environment of government policy. I think it is a little bit difficult to justify people doing the isolation when, in fact, we have held huge sporting events with large amounts of transmission that have probably gone undetected. So it's a sort of half-hearted measure that is affecting the lives of many people, many of whom will be depending on their income on a daily basis, and for whom a week of isolation is disastrous. So this is not a sort of call that I can make, but all I would say is that if this was part of a coherent strategy where there was national buy-in with the right messaging, I don't think that this would be such a problem, and we could have mitigation measures in place.
So you don't think it's a coherent strategy at the moment?
No, I don't think so, because clearly we have young people unvaccinated. We have measures in place now, or a lack of measures, to protect people from being infected nationally, and no measures in schools, for example, when we go back in September. Therefore, one has to wonder what the strategy is, and if there is one, then it should be consistent across different measures, including vaccination coverage into younger age groups potentially, understanding what long COVID is in individuals more thoroughly before we allow unfettered transmission to occur.
Do you think that we will find ourselves being put under further restrictions later on this year?
It is going to be difficult to move back. And I think that, again, the sort of messaging, rather than saying this was a one-way street to freedom, could have been more nuanced and subtle, because people understand what's going on globally. People understand there is a global emergency. And I think that there is sympathy and support for continuing to keep our country safe. And so if we need to go back into further restrictions, that is a possibility, I believe. But the expectation setting, again, has not really been consistent with this. And a safer message from government could have been, we are going to open things up, but things may not keep going the way we want to, because this is an unpredictable virus. And we don't really understand the long-term efficacy of vaccines, for example, and how declining protection may complicate matters over the next 6 to 12 months.
We opened up, Freedom Day, whatever you want to call it, on the 19th. How long do you think before we see the impact on cases as a result of opening up?
It's going to be at least 4 weeks, I would have thought, and probably longer, because the whole dynamic of COVID-19 disease is modulated or affected by some partial immunity in individuals through to vaccination or due to previous infection. And so there may be quite a delay in seeing the full effects of the opening up. And I would sort of urge anyone studying this or analysing it to just take that into account and not jump to conclusions after 4 weeks to say, here is what the opening up did in terms of health.
OK, thanks so much indeed. Let's bring in Dr. Tom Dolphin, should we? He's a BMA Consultants Committee and a member of the BMA Council. He's a consultant anaesthetist working in London. I know we are going to talk about pay, but I just wanted to pick up on that before we do that, Doctor. What do you think? How long do you think it might be before we see the number of cases rising as a result of Freedom Day?
Good morning, Kay. I don't think it's going to be very long. The numbers were already on their way up before Freedom Day became a thing. And certainly the NHS is already under pressure from non-COVID work. We've got record attendances at quite a lot of A&E departments. We've got elective surgery being cancelled in a lot of places. So what we really don't need at the moment is a lot of people turning up at hospital with COVID as well. Fortunately, as you just heard, the numbers of people being hospitalised with COVID haven't risen quite so sharply. But if the numbers in the community keep going up, inevitably the numbers coming into hospital will come up as well. And that's going to affect elective care, planned care as well.
And how do you feel about the NHS app and people deleting it?
It's very unfortunate. I think that if you blame the app for it, it overlooks the point, which is that the app is reflecting the huge rate of transmission in the community. The reason there's a pingdemic is because there's a pandemic. You know, people are being infected and testing positive in huge numbers, and blaming the app for that is like blaming a fire alarm for going off when there's a fire.
But not as many people are dying, of course, as we well know. So that chain, thankfully, has been broken. And all the people that, or many of the people that are isolating don't necessarily have COVID, but nevertheless, they can't work for that week. And we've seen the supermarket shelves empty as a result.
Sure, and it's certainly having an impact on the economy. I completely see that. And the problem is that we've still got some proportion of people who've been vaccinated are still getting ill. If you've got millions of people all catching the disease and only a tiny proportion of are ending up in hospital, that's still a large number. A small proportion of a large number is still a big number. And hospitals, as I say, don't have a lot of spare capacity at the moment. We're really stretched with everything else, quite aside from COVID. Certainly, there needs to be some consideration of whether people who've been vaccinated maybe could have a different regime, maybe as has suggested there, you know, being tested to release or something like that. But at the moment, the numbers being pinged reflect the numbers being infected because we've released all the restrictions.
Okay. Doctor, you came on to talk about the 3% pay rise offer for NHS workers. I mean, it's what has been suggested, recommended by an independent pay body to the government. So there can't really be any real argument with that, can there?
The pay review body that's made that recommendation has, part of its purpose is to make sure that doctors want to stay in the NHS, to make sure that there's recruitment going on. And honestly, over the last 10 years, our pay has fallen in value by about a third because we've had year after year after year of getting below inflation pay rises. This doesn't really go very far towards addressing that. I mean, inflation this year is projected to be more than 3%. Andy Haldane at the Bank of England is talking about 4%. So this is probably going to turn out to be yet another below inflation pay rise at a time when doctors are leaving the NHS. They're exhausted by the last year and a half, and we really, really need people to stay. This isn't going to do that.
Okay. Do you think that that your organisation, yours and nurses, other healthcare workers, would potentially consider industrial action?
We're not at that stage yet. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be sending out a survey to our members today and over the next week or so to check and make sure that they are as angry and disappointed about this pay offer as we are at the BMA, and if so, what they're prepared to do about it. And industrial action will be on that list of things they might want to consider, and we'll see what people are prepared to do to defend their pay.
Okay. Thank you on behalf of all of my viewers for the amazing work that you do.
Thank you very much. Let's hope the government recognises it too.
OK, thank you. In 2004, the city of Liverpool was awarded World Heritage status, joining landmarks such as the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal. However, it's now been stripped of this status because of new development work on the waterfront, which has been judged to be detrimental to the site's authenticity and integrity. Joined now by Liverpool-born actor and comedian Ted Robbins. Hey, Ted, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us on the programme. So basically, it's Everton's fault that Liverpool is no longer the Taj Mahal of the Northwest. What you got to say about that?
Well, I blame Tranmere Rovers, who were just over the water. Kay, I remember, I was born in Liverpool, went to school in Liverpool. I remember in the 70s and before then, the docks were an absolute decaying, mouldering site. Lads used to take their air guns down there and take pot shots at rats, you know. It was well, horrible. And since then, I've seen it develop. I had a flat in Liverpool. I studied at college there on Hope Street, the old Notre Dame College. Went to first professional job at the Everyman. So Liverpool, I've seen it grow and become this wonderful sort of living embodiment of all that's good. You know, the rant is over. I'll throw a quick joke in, because everyone says all Scousers are comedians. Only in Liverpool, I heard someone say on a bus, "Hey lad, is this bus going to stop at the pier head?" He said, "There'll be a ruddy big splash if it doesn't, love." And that's the kind of, there we are. Oh, I'm here all week. But no, my point is that it looks great. Everton, whether you're blue or red, it doesn't matter. They're building a new stadium. And, you know, it's about people. It's not about buildings. That will give thousands and thousands of people employment, cafes, revitalising the place. Liverpool has never been better. And some unelected quango in China apparently had a blind ballot. Quango, I always thought that was an orange drink. But they've now decided, wait for a laugh, doesn't get it, moves on. But
I'm laughing on the inside.
No, like many of my audiences do, if I had an audience. I'm sorry, I'm just ranting because it's ridiculous. And the people of Liverpool don't need to be told of special heritage. You know, people come from all over the world. Just for example, the Beatles. There's the liver birds, you know, iconic symbols. Do you know that just the Beatles travel industry brings in just short of £100 million every year? So in a decade, that's nearly £1 billion. People coming from Japan, if you from America. If you go down Matthew Street, where the famous Cavern Club was and is still, and the Grapes pub where everyone used to hang around, there's even a model of the philosopher Carl Jung, who said famously that Liverpool is the pool of life. And it's always had this. It's got the oldest Chinatown in Europe, you know, distinguished. It's always been a place where people of all backgrounds have mixed together. And sure, you know, they remember, you know, to get controversial, the slave trade is remembered respectfully, the Great Arch, hundreds of years old.
I think we might have lost him. Oh, he's back. He's back. You're back. We lost you for a second, but you're back now. I thought you were going to tell me that if you want a cathedral, you've got one to spare. Nope, he's definitely gone. What a shame. We'll try and pick up with Ted again, talking about the fact that Liverpool has lost its World Heritage status and no longer the Taj Mahal of the Northwest. Have a look at this. Andalusia's regional parliament had an unexpected visitor.
De los distintos diputados.
What are they looking at? What could they possibly be looking at? A rat took the parliament floor on Wednesday, causing a fair bit of disruption, as you can imagine. The rodent entered the room just ahead of a vote, leading to many lawmakers jumping out of their seats and climbing on top of them. Witnesses told local media the rat was of considerable size. So a rat in Parliament. Insert gag here. Let's find out what's happening as far as the weather is concerned. Here's Kirsty.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Good morning. Another hot and sunny day is in store, but changes are looming for the weekend. It will turn fresher, but rather more unsettled. Let's take a look, though, through the rest of the day. We have... Oh, do you know what? I'm just going to check that back to the beginning because the graphics have skipped merrily ahead without me. But very hot and sunny today. Talking about the heat wave, extreme heat warnings were issued for the first time this week by the Met Office. Now, it's across parts of Northern Ireland, Southern Wales and South West England. That's where we're most likely to see the effect of these really high temperatures, both by day and by night. Now, of course, that has adverse effects on health. It's really difficult to sleep in these humid nights. Temperatures today will peak at around 31 or 32 Celsius, possibly the odd shower, but another uncomfortable night is going to follow.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Been talking about the pingdemic this morning. Tamara is with us. Tamara, I was chatting to the Minister about it. We'll talk about it in more detail during Tamara's take. But he said he wasn't going to play a game with me about who was going to be on the list.
Yes, and it's he says it's a game, but as you're pointing out to him, this is actually deadly serious for supermarkets and other businesses who rely on deliveries coming in. We've already seen pictures of empty supermarket shelves all over our newspaper front pages, reports of petrol pumps running out of petrol because so many lorry drivers are self-isolating. Already we're seeing the retail industry saying the government needs to act now to have exemptions for retail workers to self-isolate. But the government is saying we're keeping these rules in place until the 16th of August. Who knows how big the problem could get by then? And also that list of exemptions, which we're going to get possibly today, is going to be very tightly drawn. There's sure to be some people very angry at not being on it.
He also said that he didn't recognise the images of those bare supermarket shelves. What do you think
it's difficult to tell from a few pictures whether the problem is widespread across the country. It's a bit like at the beginning of the pandemic.
Supermarkets are saying that it's
but
widespread.
All the supermarket chains are saying, this is Tesco, Sainsbury's, Lidl, Morrison's, they're all saying that they're having problems to some extent with getting products onto the shelves. And so this is something that the business secretary is going to be being lobbied about by businesses themselves and by MPs. But so far, the government is standing firm that there will be a tightly drawn list of exemptions.
OK, Tamara Finai, thanks so much for talking about that in more detail throughout the course of the programme, of course. We will also be talking about the app. Have you been pinged? Do you still have the NHS app on your phone? Apparently, a third of people have either deleted it or didn't have it in the first place, and others have switched off the test and trace.